Hi all, welcome to Tech Time with PK. In this video, we're going to learn how to create a gateway for a private network on OVH Cloud. A gateway helps servers in your private network access the internet securely, without the need for a public IP. This is ideal for isolating internal services while still enabling outbound communication. In our previous video, we covered how to create a private network and set up public cloud servers on OVH Cloud. For this demo, I'm using the same private network. If you haven't watched that video yet, I highly recommend checking it out before continuing. I've added the link in the video description below. Let's just see the overview of what we are gonna do in this video. We have internet here. Let's just draw a line here, which denotes OVH's public network. I'm drawing another line here, which is for OVH's private network. The public network has internet access. Any server connected to the public network is exposed to the internet. Now let's create two servers. OVH calls these servers instances. So, here is the public instance, which is connected to both private and public networks. The second instance will be configured as a private instance, connected exclusively to the private network. This instance is isolated from the internet. No inbound or outbound connectivity. Sometimes, we may need internet access on a private instance, like when installing updates or downloading software packages. But at the same time, we don't want to expose that instance directly to the internet. To solve this, we can create a gateway on OVH Cloud. The gateway will have internet access and can be attached to the private network, allowing our private instances to reach the internet securely, without having a public IP. Now, let's go ahead and create the servers for our setup. Head back to the OVH Cloud console. Click on the Public Cloud menu on the left, and choose Instances. Then, click on Create Instance. For the model, I'm selecting D2-2 from the Discovery series. For the location, I'm choosing 1AZ region and London. Next, I'm selecting Ubuntu 24.04 as the image for the server. I've already added my SSH keys, so I'm picking the one I set up earlier. Now, I'll give the server a name, Public Instance. Next, we need to configure the network. OVH provides two options here, private mode and public mode. Let's take a quick look at our diagram to understand what setup we need. The public instance needs access to both the public and private network. Public mode enables the instance to connect to the internet through a public network. We'll head back to the OVH console and select public mode for this instance. We'll connect the instance to the private network we created earlier. Select the private network, Test Private Network. Since this instance is just for testing, let's go with hourly billing. Then click Create Instance to launch the instance. The instance is now being created. It will take a few seconds to complete the setup. As you can see, the status is currently showing as creation. Now, let's move on and create our second server. Click on the Create Instance button to get started. I'm using the same configuration as the first server, D2-2 model, London region, and Ubuntu 24.04 as the image. But name and network configurations will be different. This server will act as our private server. So, we're naming it Private Instance. Next, let's configure the network settings. Looking back at our diagram, this server needs to be connected only to the private network. So, we'll select Private Mode. This ensures the server gets only a private IP and won't be exposed to the internet. Now, choose the Test Private Network from the list. Since this instance is just for testing, let's go with hourly billing. Then click Create Instance to launch the instance. Click on OK, Continue to complete the server setup. The creation process will take a few moments, avoid refreshing the page during this time. Once the setup is finished, you'll be automatically redirected to the Instances page. This may take longer to complete compared to the public cloud instance creation. I'm skipping ahead in the video. Now that the servers are ready, you can see them listed here. Let's take a look at the status of our newly created servers. Both are now in the enabled state. The private instance, created in private mode, has only a private IP address. On the other hand, the public instance has both public and private IPs assigned. Now, let's check the connectivity inside the servers. First, we'll SSH into the public instance. Click on the public instance and copy the SSH command from the console. Next, open the terminal and paste the SSH command. I'm using the same private key I created in the previous video. We've successfully connected to the server. Let's test the internet connection by pinging google.com. As you can see, ping is working, we're receiving responses. Now, let's exit and move on to check the private instance. Before we proceed, let's go back to our diagram. Since our private instance is connected only to the private network, it cannot be reached directly from the internet. So, how can we SSH into this server? We already have a public instance, that's where the solution comes in. We'll use this public instance as a bastion host. A bastion host is a server specifically designed to provide secure access to a private network from an external network, such as the internet. Since our public instance is connected to both the public and private networks, we can use it to securely access our private server. We'll first SSH into the public instance. From there, we'll connect to the private instance using its private IP address. We need to copy our SSH private key to the public instance to access the private instance. To access the private instance, we need to transfer our SSH private key to the public instance. Let's go back to our terminal and copy the SSH private key to the public instance. I'm using the scp command to copy the key file. There we go, it's been copied successfully. Now, let's SSH into the public instance. To connect to the private instance, we need its private IP. Let's go to the OVH console to find it. I'm on the public instance page now, going back to the instances page. Here's the private IP of our private instance. I'm copying it. Let's now SSH into the private instance using the private IP address we already copied. I'm using the SSH private key that we transferred earlier from my local machine to this server. Now, we're inside the server, you can see the hostname is set to private instance. Let's try pinging google.com to check for internet access. As expected, ping isn't working, this server is connected to the private network only. Let's verify the IP configuration using the IP address command. See, this server has only a private IP assigned. Let's head back to our diagram to see what we need to do next. We've already created the private instance and connected it to the private network. Now, it's time to create a gateway for that private network. Go back to the OVH Cloud console, and from the left side menu, under the Network section, you'll find an option called Gateways. Go ahead and click on it. We're now on the Gateway listing page. Since we haven't created any gateways yet, the page only shows a Create Gateway button. Go ahead and click on it to start creating our first gateway. Now let's configure the gateway mode and region. We need to select the same region as our private network. I'm choosing 1AZ region and London. Next, it's time to choose the gateway size. OVH offers different sizes based on bandwidth, like small, medium, and large. The small option is the most affordable and offers 200 megabits per second bandwidth, so I'm selecting that. Next, we need to configure the gateway name and select the private network. I'm naming the gateway Gateway Test, and for the private network, I'm selecting Test Private Network. Once everything is set, click on the Create Gateway button to begin the creation process. It might take a little while to complete, so do not refresh the page during this time. OVH will automatically redirect you to the gateway listing page once the gateway has been created successfully. The gateway has been created, and we've been redirected to the gateway listing page. Let's take a moment to check the gateway information from here. Our gateway is named Gateway Test. It's located in the UK region, and it's connected to the private network we selected earlier. A public IP address has been assigned to the gateway. This will act as our outbound IP to access the internet. The gateway size is small, and it has 2 private IPs assigned to it. The first IP address you see here is the one we reserved for the gateway when we created the private network in the previous video. Now, let's navigate to the private network section to confirm the gateway is connected. Click on the private network menu from the left side panel. As you can see, the gateway we just created has been successfully assigned to the private network. So now, we've created the gateway and connected it to our private network. Next, let's head over to the terminal and check if our private instance has internet access. Go ahead and switch to the terminal now. To check the internet access, we'll ping google.com again. As you can see, the ping is working perfectly now. That means our private instance is successfully connected to the internet through the gateway. In this demo, I created the gateway after deploying the instances to help you understand how it functions and why it's needed. But in real-world scenarios, the gateway is usually configured first, before creating any instances. This ensures that private instances have internet access right from the start. Let's log out from both servers one by one. Then, we'll return to our diagram to review the next steps. Our private instance can now access the internet through the gateway. But sometimes, we may need to expose the private instance to the internet. So how do we do that? OVH provides a feature called Floating IPs. These are public IP addresses that can be assigned to cloud servers, allowing them to be accessed from the internet through this IP. Let's go to the OVH console and create a floating IP for our private instance. Click on Public IPs from the left side panel. Currently, we don't have any public IPs, so let's create one by clicking the Create a Public IP Address button. OVH offers 2 types of public IPs, Additional IP and Floating IP. Additional IPs can be used with various OVH Cloud products like bare metal servers, VPS, and so on. But to use them, you need to manually configure the network settings inside the server. On the other hand, floating IPs are made specifically for public cloud. They require no manual setup, you can simply attach them through the OVH console. I've selected floating IP. Next, we need to choose the mode and location. I'm selecting 1AZ region and London, since our private network and gateway are already configured in this region. Now, let's attach the floating IP to an instance. From the instance list, I'm selecting Private Instance. The IP address from the private network is already pre-selected, I'm going with that. Hourly billing is selected by default, and that's the only billing option available here. OVH has also pre-selected our existing gateway, because we chose the same region for this IP. Let's click on Create a Floating IP to proceed. It will take just a moment to attach the IP, so let's wait. I'm refreshing the page now to check the current status. Our floating IP is ready. Let's check the details. Here's the IP address that has been assigned. The region is set to UK, just as we configured. We can also see the ID of the instance it's attached to, and the instance name itself. On the right-hand side, we can find configuration options for this IP, such as updating the instance or deleting the IP. Now, let's SSH into the private instance using this floating IP. Let's copy the IP address and head over to the terminal. As you can see, I've exited from all the servers I previously SSH'd into, and I'm now back on my local terminal. Let's SSH into the server using the floating IP we copied from the OVH console. I'm using my private key here. And we're in. Notice the hostname is private instance. Let's confirm the IP address inside the server. Type IP address. Our private IP is 10.2.2.28. Now let's switch back to the OVH console. Head to the Instances page by clicking Instances from the left sidebar. The page is loaded. Let's check the private IP for private instance. It shows IP 10.2.2.28, the same as we saw in the terminal. That's it. We've successfully connected a floating IP to our private instance. And that's it for this tutorial. We've successfully created a gateway on OVH Cloud to provide secure internet access to a private instance without exposing it directly. We also explored how to use a bastion host for SSH access, and finally, we saw how to expose a private server to the internet using a floating IP, all while keeping our setup clean and secure. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Tech Time with PK for more DevOps and cloud tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.